All right, here we go. Episode 138, Charm City Birdwatch Podcast. I'm your host, Nolan McGraw. I got Jake here with me. We are back. No Ravens game to break down this week, unfortunately, but we'll have some discussion about the AFC Championship, the NFC Championship, two pretty interesting games. We were also sort of blessed, a little bit cursed, depending on how you look at it here, with some Orioles news, some Ravens news. So before we get to the AFC and NFC Championship games at the end, we are going to discuss all of this stuff that has happened to the Orioles and a little bit of Ravens news. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. The Baltimore Orioles have made a lot of headlines this week, most of them pretty bad. I'll just start by saying that fans are not happy. You know, we're in the middle of this rebuild. It's a long process. Even diehard fans who understand that it's a long process and are okay with that and have their fingers crossed that this is all going to lead to more prosperous times ahead, even those people are probably a little fed up right now just because it's nonstop bad news. And to start it all off, we've got these MASN departures. MASN has parted ways. The Orioles have parted ways in conjunction with a handful of broadcasters, predominantly on the TV side of things. But if you haven't heard, most people have, but just to read off some names here who will no longer be doing broadcasts with the Orioles in any capacity: Gary Thorne, Jim Hunter, Tom Davis, Rick Dempsey, Dave Johnson, Mike Bordick, Brian Roberts. Those, some big names there. Very big names. A lot of them probably synonymous with Orioles baseball for a lot of fans. I can certainly say that Gary Thorne is absolutely 100%, synonymous with Orioles baseball. He is the voice of Orioles baseball for me as someone who's 24 years old. He was the guy, when my fandom sort of grew to its peak. I think it's pretty obvious this is financially related. We had the COVID impact on baseball has been just absolutely horrible. I could rant and rave about it for hours probably, but there's been 40 minor league teams around the country that are no longer affiliated with a major league club. That's the impact on the minors. You look at all the small market teams in the majors that are being impacted by this. Look at what the Pirates are doing, the Orioles are doing right now. It's not good. If one of these people was gone, you could maybe raise an eyebrow, but when you lose this many people at once, I think it's pretty clear. A lot of these people have been there for decades. They have big contracts, and I'm not saying they're not worth it. I'm not saying anything of that sort. I'm just saying they have big contracts, and you can equate it to what you're seeing on the field. They move on from players who have bigger contracts and replace them with younger guys and give them a shot, and they're cheaper, and that's what you're seeing there. So MASN's trying to save money, the Orioles trying to save money. This is the result. The only thing I will say before I turn it over to Jake here is that we can see the names: Gary Thorne, Jim Hunter, Tom Davis, and so on. Those are the names we know about that are no longer with MASN or the Orioles. But what immediately came to my mind is there has to be so many other people behind the scenes whose names we'll never know, who were such an integral part of bringing Orioles baseball to us. They've also been laid off, or they've been furloughed. They've been given a pay cut, benefits taken away. So we see these names at the forefront, and we're disappointed for them because we feel like we know them to an extent. We hear their voices so often, but I can tell you that there's got to be a lot of people behind the scenes that are suffering from this as well, and that's what really is disappointing about this to me, is just so many people here losing their job, and you never like to see that.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing, for baseball has been, even before the coronavirus pandemic started, I mean, we were already talking about some financial problems that small market teams like the Orioles and their minor league affiliates were running into. And then you throw coronavirus in, and you completely cancel a minor league season, and it compounds all of the negative financial aspects that were already starting before we even found ourselves in this no fans in attendance, very low profit margin that a lot of small market major league teams are unfortunately facing. And I agree with you that guys like Gary Thorne's the one that hurts the most, because as a fan, you're so used to because there's so many baseball games, you're so used to hearing the voices of the commentators because they're on literally every single night. And Gary Thorne, like you said, has been around since the very beginning for people like you and me, who, when we first were getting into baseball, that's when Gary Thorne was really being established as a MASN broadcaster. And, he's had several slip ups on the air that have been hilarious, downright hilarious. I've heard some of those mentioned, throughout the week. Mike Bordick is another one that's kind of tough, because he was somebody that really improved. And I was not high on him at the start of about a decade ago when he got started in the broadcast booth, but he really got better. Some of the other guys you mentioned, like Brian Roberts and Greg Olson, are also tough to see. But I mean, I'm not shocked, because they haven't really been in those roles for a long time. And I think guys like Rick Dempsey and Roberts, who are former players, are going to still get to hang around and be in different roles within the organization, even if they're not as part of the broadcast. So at least for some of those guys that love the business so much and love the game so much, like Dempsey, for example, at least like they're still being offered to hang around in a different capacity. And I'm sure some of these guys, as heartbroken as they are they can somewhat understand of what's going on, because they're, it's a really tough gig, and you absolutely hate seeing people lose their jobs. But I can't say that I'm shocked or that I blame the Orioles or MASN for what they did, because we're just in such a crazy time period right now. This is affecting all sports. I'm sure we'll have conversations about the salary cap issues the Ravens are going to be facing that I'm sure they didn't even know they were going to be dealing with a year ago. And unfortunately for baseball, some of it's on them for struggling as much as they were before the pandemic began. But now it's being further compounded, and everything negative is accelerating much quicker because there's no money. On the other hand, look at some positives. You get to hear more of Kevin Brown. I think that's a great positive there. I think Ben McDonald is going to be the main MASN color commentator with Jim Palmer being more of a part-time guy. I think that's great news as well. I love Ben McDonald. Jeff Arnold, the former Keys radio guy that's now going to get more opportunities on the radio. Some guys, I think, because there's going to be a smaller staff, I think that'll kind of accelerate the normalcy of hearing these voices, because they're going to be doing so much work. So yes, I really miss Gary. I'm going to miss Gary Thorne a lot. It's a huge bummer. I would much rather have him than Scott Garceau. I must say, it's nothing personal against Scott. It's just Gary Thorne's voice is so iconic to me. But at the same time, I'm also happy for Thorne, because he's an older guy now, and he's getting to the point where he should be enjoying his later years, especially with everything going on right now. You get a guy in Scott who was doing radio for a while and now gets to step back into the play-by-play voice that he hasn't done for a while, and got kicking up and starting up again last year. So it is, it's tough to see. You hate to see a lot of the guys that you as you said, you listen to for so many years leave. But at the same time, I guess, just try to be, happy for the guys like Kevin Brown and Jeff Arnold, who get to, kind of develop new roles, and guys that we know, like Rob Long, I know is going to get to be involved with a lot of the, I've heard like conflicting reports on the pre and post game shows. I don't know if those are still happening or not, or how long they're going to be, how that's going to be formatted, but it sounds like there's going to be changes there too. And if they're doing less post game coverage on MASN, that opens up the door for guys like, Steve Molesky and you guys over at the Fan, if doing the post game coverage. So, we'll see it. It's definitely a time of change, and it's definitely going to be much different, but I think not just with baseball, but with the NFL, we can expect to see, and all sports, we're going to see some differences going forward, because we're just in a different world right now.
Yeah, I will say to that last point, I mean, you're going to see some changes, but look at the conversation around the NFL and how they're dealing with the coronavirus, the conversation around the NBA and the finances there. The conversation is a lot different, and that the NFL knows they're fine. The NBA, for the most part, knows they're fine. They took a little bit of a hit with the bubble, but at the end of the day, being able to finish that season was tremendously huge for them. But even like some of the fixes that the NBA might have, I mean, they're talking about the rumors of potentially adding like 2 cities to the NBA and expanding the NBA. And like if that was going to happen, which has been rumored for a while, like there's always rumblings of that. So why not now? Why not now to stimulate the league economy, so to speak? That's a big difference there between the NBA that's like, well, our fix could be adding a team and adding more excitement to the league, versus baseball, which is like, well, we don't know what the hell we're going to do because everything is just in shambles right now. So baseball is worse off by a long shot. And we'll go back to the MASN stuff here. I mean, it's, they cut these people, they cut these big salaries. You mentioned the pregame and postgame there. They said that they're cutting it down to 15 minutes, hosted by whatever play-by-play and color analysts are working that particular game. They'll do a 15-minute lead-in and a 15-minute wrap-up, and that's it. If the teams want to continue to do a full show, the team itself will have to pay out of pocket for production costs and all that stuff. And I can't tell you the exact number, but I have heard from a reliable source that is insanely expensive. Last thing here, I'm with you, Gary Thorne. That's the most disappointing one. Been here since I think 2007, and he was an established guy. Like, he was the voice of hockey, and for a lot of people, the national guy for hockey. And you'd hear him doing other baseball games elsewhere before. I mean, he's a big name, and to have him come to Baltimore in a time where the team was bad and in the middle of these just seemingly never-ending dark ages, it was amazing to have a guy like that. Such a treat, such a blessing to have a voice like that to make the bad times seem better. And then when the team became good again and they went on that run from 2012 to 16, he made the highlights even better. All these great moments. He's the voice that you hear in your head with all those great moments. And it's just sad to see him go. And I think the only thing I can say is, if you're a fan and you're disappointed, I'm with you. I understand, but give these other guys a chance. Like you mentioned Kevin Brown. He's been here this will be his 3rd year, I think. Jeff Arnold, who's been in the Orioles system for a long time. Melanie Newman. I mean, give these people a chance to grow into, your favorites, because it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to you can't create years and years and years of memories and history in one season or one game. It just needs time. So about a day after, same day that all this stuff was coming out, we find out that the Orioles did something else kind of preposterous in order to save money this offseason. And they went to two of their biggest contracts, 2 guys in arbitration this year, Trey Mancini, Anthony Santander, 2 of their best players, 2 of the guys that would be presumably making the most money, not named Chris Davis, on this roster. And they asked them, I don't understand this fully, but from my perspective here, they asked them to defer portions of their 2021 salary to later years. I don't think the concept of deferring money is foreign to people, to players, to fans, to anyone, but doing it during an arbitration year is pretty odd, from what I've heard. And we also had in the story done by The Athletic, an unnamed general manager and an unnamed agent The agent and general manager both not associated with the Orioles, not associated with either player here. Both of them described it as highly unusual, and through their comments seemed to be looking down on the Orioles for doing it. I believe the general manager his quote was just something along the lines of, "Wow, I'm just shocked that would happen." Not a good sign. It's a bad look, especially for Mancini, a guy who didn't play in 2020, was battling cancer, comes back. He's easily your best player, fan favorite, not that expensive. I mean, we're talking about arbitration here. It's just kind of embarrassing. And now we have with this, and I'll turn it over to Jake, we got some rumors brewing from national reporters here that the Braves are interested in Trey Mancini as a trade option. They've made some offers to the Orioles, and that's all we know.
I mean, I can't say I'm too surprised. I mean, the Orioles have notoriously been, especially, in our lifetime, have been notoriously weird with money, whether it's not spending money 95% of the time or throwing $160 million at a player like Chris Davis. They've just always been extremely weird, extremely cheap, whatever way you want to describe it in terms of financials. And I mean, they're a small market team in a division with the Yankees and the Red Sox. And it's just, it makes the willingness to not spend money even that much more questionable, which is why we praise them so much when they brought in the guys from the Astros who wanted to completely revamp the infrastructure and build this thing internally instead of spending dollars that they didn't have elsewhere. I mean, if that, we know right now it's going to be another year or two before we really start in terms of planning this rebuild and how the rebuild was supposed to be planned, in terms of when the Orioles are going to start competing again, probably another 2 or 3 years. Does the pandemic and all the unforeseen situations that it's been brought up, does that impact how the Orioles are able to build their team financially? Probably to some extent. But again, you're talking about, your best player here, not on a big contract yet. And you're going to them, asking them to, defer money, and not just him, but a guy that's performed better than almost anybody. And Mancini Santander was probably the team MVP last year. One of the best players on the roster, hands down at this point. It doesn't look good. So how much is the coronavirus pandemic impacting the Orioles? I mean, I don't have the answers to that question in terms of them being compared to other teams and how they're dealing with it. But I can't say that I'm too surprised to see, cheap, penny pinching, as you were describing it, moves like this, because I think in some ways the Orioles kind of have their hands tied. And like I said, I don't know the financials. I don't know the numbers. I don't know how much effort it would have taken with the rest of the financials to pay Mancini what they originally had planned this year on arbitration. Arbitration is really confusing to me as it is. I don't really fully understand it anyway. So maybe it's not my place to pass too much judgment. But it can't say anything good about, you can't say anything about you feeling any better about Mancini being in Baltimore long term. And, even last season, some Trey Mancini rumors were kind of swirling around, and we were wondering if the Orioles were going to give in and make a move or kind of wait for a bigger package. And he didn't. This was probably 2019, I believe, because he didn't even play last year. But that will be interesting. I mean, the Orioles and Braves have had a couple of trades back and forth over the last few years. And, if they do, it kind of puts the Orioles even more into a bind to find that next franchise type, leading, changing player. So, hopefully tensions don't get too rough here. I mean, we certainly are going to have some interesting contract negotiations for our NFL team in Baltimore here this offseason. And, hopefully both the Orioles and the Ravens don't follow into the same tough, situations. But it's another thing to kind of look at and say, just doesn't make you encouraged of where things are going.
No, and I don't really see the benefit in the Braves bringing in Trey Mancini right now. He's not going to play first base. Where's he going to play? In the outfield? I thought they had a pretty good outfield. Is he going to DH?
Is Markakis coming back or not, though? Is he still playing, or is he going to retire?
I don't know, but I mean, they've got, an MVP type guy at first base. They got another MVP type guy in left field / center field. I don't know. I mean, maybe he could play right field. I just don't. Right now, right. I don't get it. for them. And to that point, if he's not as necessary to them, what do you think the offer is? It's not like the offer is going to be that crazy good. It's not like they desperately need him. And then on top of that, he didn't even play in 2020. Even with it being a short season, he didn't play. So, again, I don't think the market value for Mancini is even that high right now, which to me, it's not talking down on him, but as a fan of the Orioles, it's concerning that these offers have been made. And if I start hearing rumors that the Orioles are listening more and more, or they're fielding offers from other teams and they're not immediately shooting it down, I'm going to be pretty pissed off because I just don't see the benefit in trading him right now. Let's get to some good Orioles news, and we'll start with MASN. Let's be fair to MASN. We beat up on them for parting ways with all these beloved broadcasters, but they are doing something that we've been asking for years now, and that's finally implementing streaming as an option to view Orioles games. Now, let me preface this. We're not 100% of the way there yet. We're just getting started. But to me, the important thing is this is now an infrastructure. There's now something in place. This is not just talk. This is not just rumors. This is not just the Angelos kids saying, hey, we'd like to do that at some point. This is actually happening. You can now stream 162 Orioles games this year. Spring training still up in the air. I don't know about that, but every regular season game on MASN, you can stream through the MASN app or online. You have to have your TV cable login that if you're a cable subscriber that gets MASN on TV, you can use that login to watch on your phone, laptop, tablet, wherever. Not the best option. We don't have a solution for cord cutters yet. That's the next step, but they're, at least for right now, with all this other craziness going on, we've stepped into the 21st century, Jake. We're finally there. If you want to watch, if you're on the go, they play 162 games. There's no way you're going to be at home when every single one of those games is taking place. If you want to watch on your phone, when you're away from the house, your tablet, maybe it's a day game, you're at work, you could have it on your phone. That would be great. That sort of thing. It's just nice to have that option. And now that MASN is going to have the infrastructure for streaming and figure it out and actually have this service available, hopefully the next step very, very shortly is its own paid subscription. If you are not a cable subscriber, you can pay a monthly fee and receive a season package like with MLB TV. You can pay a yearly fee and get every game as a non-cable subscriber. That's the next step.
You kind of hit it all there. I mean, it's the equivalent of, well, and I think the goal is to have, the monthly subscription like you were talking about. Like that's the end goal, where you don't even need to put in your TV login credentials. And if there is a paid subscription, then that's, you're paying money to MASN, and that's helping them recoup some of the money that they're losing right now. Or some of the money that they have lost. So you're right. There are limitations. It's the equivalent of, your family or your parents like have one cable system, on the TV or two, and then you have like a Roku in your room, and you have to like log in through the TV provider through the 20 different apps that you install on the Roku. It's not something where it's like Hulu TV and you get a bunch of, if you have Hulu TV, you're not going to get MASN because MASN is provided through cable providers or TV providers, such as DirecTV, and you have to provide that login information. So if you're an Orioles fan living in Texas, you're not going to be able to stream the games because your cable package, even if you had TV, is not going to include MASN. So yes, there are limitations, and I mean, this is happening like 3 months before the season begins. This is being announced just now in the off season. So of course it's going to take some time. And I feel bad for guys like you or anybody else that's, technically advanced in this current situation here in 2021 and has already cut cable. I feel for all those people, and it's probably going to be a fluid situation and might be a year or two before that happens. But hey, at least like there will be a visible MASN app that you can download yes, there is work to be done, but hey, at least they're doing something, because that's something we've been begging for a while. In the the stone ages of the podcast, when I was on back in the day, we would be talking about that a lot. So at least an effort is being made to alleviate that problem. Even if not everybody can access it, at least the ground is breaking and there is some movement being made on this issue. And in 2 or 3 years' time, hopefully, I'm not even talking about it anymore.
Yep, and let it be known that the Orioles and the Nationals, both with MASN, are the only two major league teams up until now that did not have streaming option, a dedicated streaming service to view their games, whether it was something you could pay for separate from cable or be able to log in through a cable provider. Now every team has coverage, but for the longest time there, it was just the Orioles, just the Nationals, that if you wanted to watch the games and you lived in the market, by the way, that's the other factor here. You mentioned someone who lives on the other side of the country. They would be able to view it with an MLB TV subscription, but we know how expensive those are. But for people in this area, which MASN covers a huge area, with six states and DC.
Yeah, North Carolina has it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large area here that, yeah, if you live down in North Carolina and you wanted to watch the Orioles and you're thinking, well, I'm far enough away, I'll get MLB TV, and you load it up and it says, nope, you're in the blackout area. So what the heck? I'm in North Carolina. Like, this is ridiculous. Let's move on to oh my goodness, I almost forgot. One more thing with the Orioles. Got caught up there with the streaming service. We got a new shortstop coming. They parted ways with Jose Iglesias this offseason, found a way to trade him for some prospects. That came as a little bit of a surprise, especially because they picked up the second-year option on his contract, and fans thought that was a no-brainer. You know, he played so well in the shortened 2020 season. Just bring him back. Good to have a veteran leader on the team like that, just someone to solidify, especially defensively. You know, forget him being an outstanding player at the plate. The defense that he provided to the team was worth the price that you were paying him. Well, they find a trade partner for him. I don't hate it. You get some prospects back for him. It's not the end of the world because, again, at most, he was only going to be here one more year. So you're going to part ways with him within the year anyway. Might as well trade him. Makes sense to me. But who's going to play shortstop in 2021? That's the question. And we now have our answer. It appears to be Freddy Galvis, a veteran shortstop, kind of similar to Iglesias, more of a defensive shortstop than an offensive shortstop. But you never know. Maybe he has a resurgence at the plate like Iglesias did. But at the very least, the Orioles actually have an answer at shortstop, and they don't have to force us another 162 games of Richie Martin. No offense to Richie Martin. He's just not major league ready, in my opinion. And he, while we're on the subject of him, really, well, he was injured last year, but had he been healthy, really was done a disservice in 2020. Had there been minor league seasons, I think it would have been easy. Send him to AAA, let him work out all his issues there, and then when he's finally ready, you bring him back up to the majors, because he's close. His defense is major league ready. His offense is pitiful. You need to get him to some sort of competency in terms of offense, and the Orioles didn't even have that option last year. But again, it's a wash because he was injured. So Freddy Galvis is here. Jake, your thoughts? Probably not that much to say, but what are your thoughts on them adding a veteran shortstop?
I mean, aside from the injury problems that Iglesias had last year, they got great value out of him for what he was able to do offensively. So I think you just kind of go into the same mindset with Galvis. Is he's a great defender, and hopefully his career 2.47 average goes up a little bit this year, and he has a decent offensive season. So it's kind of like the exact same player as Iglesias, a veteran. You're going to get solid defensive work, and you just hope that you reap the benefits of a good offensive season on a one-year deal.
So I'm looking at this here. I will say I'm looking at the games played for Freddy Galvis. That stands out to me. It's been a while now, 2017 and 2018, when he was with Philadelphia and San Diego, played a full 162 games. Prior to that, he was floating around 150, 158. So this guy's been playing since he's been established as an everyday player. He's been healthy. In 2019, split that time between two teams, but he played 147 games, and then he played 47 of the 60 game season last year. So I think health is also a big thing here. I don't think there was any health concerns with Iglesias either, but we saw him get banged up. So Freddy Galvis, say what you want about him as an offensive player, but he's got the defense and he's a workhorse. He's going to go out there and play every day. That's the type of guy I want on this Orioles team right now. So we'll see. And if he does give you anything beyond what you're expecting, then you can trade him, and get a couple more prospects. Because again, for a guy that's only here for a year, maybe two, if he plays so above and beyond expectations, you can just trade him and get even more in return than you expected. So nothing bad to say about that move. Let's move on from the Orioles. We're finally done with them. Quickly on the Ravens, really only one thing I want to talk about here. Really one of our first dominoes to fall this offseason in terms of free agents for the Ravens. Long snapper, Morgan Cox spent 11 years with the Ravens, won a Super Bowl with the team in 2012. He has been let go. He was a pending free agent. The Ravens told him they're not going to offer him another contract. So his time in Baltimore is done. This has broken up our favorite trio in Baltimore. The Wolf Pack is no more. We talk about Justin Tucker all the time. He gets all the credit for making the kicks, but even he will be the first to tell you that it's all about the process and the three of them working together and not just him kicking the ball. It's about the snap. It's about the hold. And as good of a kicker as Justin Tucker is, Sam Cook is that good of a punter / holder, and Morgan Cox is that good of a snapper. Tell me the last time Morgan Cox had a botched snap. I can't remember it. I honestly can't. And we talk about, how clutch is Justin Tucker. Well, I can remember him missing some kicks. It's not often, but I can remember them. I can't think of any moment that comes to mind where Morgan Cox had a bad snap or Sam Cook had a bad hold for that matter. It just does not come to mind. So to be that good at your craft, it's not one of the flashiest positions on the football field. We know that. It sort of gets glossed over a lot. But to be that good at the thing you do, where you can do it time and time and time again without mistake, that's very impressive, and it deserves recognition. So Morgan Cox, no longer a Raven, 11 years with the team. That is a very long time in the NFL to spend with one team. They'll save a little bit of money. He was getting paid, over $1 million to be here just with his veteran status. So they'll save a little bit of money, sign a long snapper who will be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not the millions of dollars. Save a little bit of money there.
Yeah, anytime you let a long-time player go, it always hurts, especially one that's made almost zero mistakes on a thing as crucial as, snapping the ball for Justin Tucker and Sam Cook. I guess Eric DeCosta thought to himself, well, I'm already going to have to find one new center this offseason. I might as well replace both of them. If I remember correctly, Cox was on the long list of players that had the coronavirus and was out, missed a game, and I forget the guy's name who replaced him. And DeCosta mentioned him the other day during his press conference and basically said that, he was on the practice squad all year. They liked what they saw, and they're just going with the cheaper option there. I feel for Morgan, it's a tough thing. And he's not for a long snapper, $1 million or whatever he was scheduled to make in 2021 is not that huge of a hit. But when you're talking about the Ravens, probably extending Lamar Jackson this offseason and that situation already being extremely tricky with the decreased salary cap number, which we still don't know. I kind of think that, any way that the Ravens can start to save money and get ahead of the the salary cap hell that they're going to be facing once they do, eventually sign Lamar and start dealing with the repercussions of the decreased salary cap. I mean, Morgan Cox is not going to be the only casualty here. There's going to be more. Let me make that very clear. This is a very minor release in terms of what could be coming next. You hope they can keep as many of their players as they can, but DaCosta said it, and DaCosta said it best with words from Ozzie Newsome. You can't keep everybody, and you can't sign everybody. So, whatever the Ravens decide to do financially, I'm going to give them a lot of props because they have a lot of unforeseen circumstances being driven on top of them now, and which it's very unfair to them that they're now dealing with this before even signing Lamar Jackson. But they're also it could end up being a good thing that we don't know. We don't know what Lamar is going to command, and that's going to be an interesting conversation to have over the offseason. And that's weeks away, obviously, but I think it's a smart move by DaCosta to try to save as many dollars as he can before bracing for this big contract for Lamar. You just hope that the replacement doesn't have to be 100% absolutely perfect like Cox was, but you just hope that he's not a guy that's going to get the rattles or the jitters and start long snapping similar to what Patrick McCary was doing in a regular snap last weekend. If that starts to be a problem, especially early on next season, then there's going to be some frustration there. But losing a long snapper is very minimal for a team in terms of losses. So I'd much rather lose Morgan Cox than some of the other players on this team. So,
yep, and also a guy that overcame 2 season-ending ACL injuries, one in his rookie season 2010, and then again in 2014, came back from both of those and played at such a high level for 11 years. Nothing but respect there. That's incredibly challenging to do for any athlete. And maintain that high level of performance post-injury. So credit to him. And real quick, I mean, while we're on the subject of special teams guys and the Wolfpack, just to put it in the fans' mind here, Sam Cook will be a free agent after the 2022 season, but he has an opt-out in his contract after 2021, which would allow the Ravens to save roughly $1 million in cap space. So we're talking about all this this cap shuffling, this puzzle that is the salary cap in the NFL every year. We got Morgan Cox this year. Sam Cook is about 40 years old, approaching that. This might be his last year. You don't know. And I can tell you this. If the Ravens don't cut bait after 2021 and save that $1 million, which right now that just seems like what's going to happen, there's no way he gets signed after 2022. So, again, it probably no surprise to fans who are paying attention to contracts and whatnot. But while we're on the subject of the Wolfpack, Sam Cook will not be a Raven within the next 2 years, and most likely this upcoming season will be his last as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just not even more of a money thing. It's just an age thing with Cook. So, I mean, you just hope that like they did with Cox this year, they have somebody on the practice squad or with them in camp that they can at least get a look at and maybe bring back to fill that role. But yeah, it's coming up. So, we talk about the end of the Wolfpack. Well, they might have to, Tucker is going to be the only one left, and he's eventually going to need to either be, given more money or moved on from. So I don't know. Maybe the Ravens just decide to blow the entire thing up. I hope not, because Tucker's the best kicker in NFL history, or one of them. But yeah, definitely some changing of the guards coming there for the special teams unit. But all these guys have been here forever, and it's coming eventually. And I think Tucker's still got at least 5 more solid years kicking in him, hopefully more. But yeah, definitely reaching the end of the road there for Cook as well.
He's definitely got more than that. Kickers kick forever. Saying that, like Sam Cook, he's been punting at such a high level. He's 40 years old. I mean, even he's a guy. Tucker, I don't know. He can't be that old.
It's got to be in his early 30s, I would imagine.
Justin Tucker is 31.
Okay, yeah, he's got like 10 more years, probably 8 to 10.
So we'll see, and once they move on from Sam Cook? Do we have to call Justin Tucker the lone wolf?
That was good. That was good. You should use that on the air if you ever get the opportunity.
All right, I'll keep it in my pocket. Don't tell anyone. It's my secret. I'm waiting to use it. Someone,
No, I wouldn't dare.
I'm sure someone has probably been all over that already. Let's move on here. AFC Championship, NFC Championship. I guess we'll just go in the order that they were played. We'll start with the Buccaneers and the Packers. I was wrong about both games. I'll start by saying that. Did not pick either game correctly. My Super Bowl prediction is completely blown up in my face. But the Buccaneers beat the Green Bay Packers, went into Lambeau. They are the 5 seed. But a lot to say about this Buccaneers team. So much to say. Tom Brady goes from the AFC to the NFC. He's playing in his 10th Super Bowl now. They are a wild card team in the Super Bowl. First time that's happened in a really long time. And they're also the first team to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So a lot of crazy stuff here with this Buccaneers team. And they beat the Packers in an absolutely thrilling NFC Championship game. Obviously the better of the two and one of the best games of the season, hands down. Brady threw 3 interceptions, didn't matter. Bucs still find a way to win. Their defense was very stout. But I think, to me, this game really just came down to coaching, difference in coaching. The Bucs were much more aggressive. You look at the way they handled their situation at the end of the first half. We're not quite in field goal range with not a lot of time left on the clock, no timeouts. So what do? Maybe they try for a quick pass out of bounds and go for a long field goal. What do? No, they throw a deep shot to the end zone and they get a touchdown. They get the home run at such a crucial time in the game, go up 21-10, and they double dip. They get the ball to start the second half, come out, score another touchdown. They go up 28-10. Very aggressive, great coaching there. Conversely, terrible technique defensively, terrible scheming by the defense there for Green Bay. So right there, that was example number 1. And then example 2, at the end of the game, we all know what happened. 3rd and 8, Aaron Rodgers escapes the pocket. For some reason, instead of running and trying to score the touchdown with his legs, he decides to throw it into double coverage. Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in football, but still, double coverage would have been an absolutely insane catch for him to try to make between those defenders. And Rodgers, look, I'm not saying he would have been guaranteed a touchdown there with his legs, but I can tell you at the very least that he would have been stopped at like the 1 or the 2, maybe the 3, which at that point you're faced with a 4th and very manageable versus a 4th and 8, which led to this next awful coaching decision. Let's kick a field goal. Down 8, 2 minutes to play. We're going to kick a field goal and go down 5. I don't understand it. There's nothing I can say that hasn't been said already about this. Matt LaFleur is getting dragged left and right for this decision, and rightfully so. Jake, what was your thoughts here about the decision to kick the field goal? Rodgers not trying to run it in for a touchdown, and really this game as a whole. Your takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, I understand everybody piling on Matt LaFleur. I understand everybody's piling on him because, you've got the greatest quarterback ever on the other sideline who's played in, 78 different Super Bowls now. And he's been in this situation more than anybody in the NFL ever has. And you're down 5 and you're just willing to put the ball back in his hands. I just think sometimes, we saw it happen to Sean McDermott too in the Chiefs game. I just think sometimes these coaches get so, it makes sense when you think about it because they're so, obsessed with these game plans and they spend so much time preparing. I think they get so sucked into their own team, they forget everything about the other team and what they're about. And I understand, LaFleur and the Packers are getting so much heat. All you're hearing this week on sports talk shows is, Aaron Rodgers has really gotten screwed over there in Green Bay. They drafted Jordan Love last year. They didn't help Aaron Rodgers out at all. You see all the weapons Tom Brady has over there. Aaron Rodgers has got nothing. Okay, that might be true, and yeah, the coaching decision might be god awful. But and I want to give I heard Terry Ford say this on his show on his podcast. I want to give him credit for saying this. I mean, you didn't see Aaron Rodgers voice his opinion as the field goal unit was getting trotted out. He didn't really say much, just went off to the sideline and let the special teams unit, that's your team, man. I mean, you've only got he's in his late 30s. Who knows how much time he has left? You're not going to try to fight for your right to stay on the field and score a touchdown and just not even worry about still being down by 5 and just, at least tie the game right there. I just don't understand it. And then he goes and throws his coach under the bus after the game. It's like, no, dude. Not only did you not make your case, not only did you plead your case like we saw Lamar Jackson do in Seattle last year, and hey, guess what? It worked because Harbaugh noticed and said, hey, you want to go for that? And he said, hell yeah. I'm sure if LaFleur would have checked with Rodgers and said, you want to go for that? He would have gotten a very emotional response. But none of that communication ever took place, which kind of says a lot to you about, Rodgers and LaFleur and those two personalities going together. But the offense also had 3 different chances there to score, and they didn't. So this game showed me, not only do the Buccaneers not only do they outsmart and outplay Matt LaFleur and the Packers, but that's what separates Tom Brady with Aaron Rodgers. It's just, in big moments, Brady comes through and Rodgers hasn't always done that. Rodgers still might mechanically be the best quarterback that I've ever watched, but Brady's the best ever in terms of, big moments, the hardware that goes with it. And that proved to be the case when they were down, the Packers were down 5. They gave the ball back to Brady, and then he put the game away.
So I agree with you about Brady, and he's been very clutch throughout his career, but I can't give him any credit in this one. This all goes to the Tampa Bay defense because, like you said, Brady with those 3 interceptions when they were trying to put away the game in the second half, 3 interceptions, and what did the Green Bay offense get out of any of
6
those?
points, right? And then 3 and outs.
Yeah.
2 3 and outs after that.
So that's gift wrap, especially typically for Aaron Rodgers, who has just been a comeback wizard in his career. And they still staged the comeback. They were down 28-10. They got within 8 points at the end of the game, had a chance to tie it. That's a comeback in and of itself, but they could have easily won this game. You were gift-wrapped with 3 turnovers, and you did nothing. So I can't give Brady any credit in terms of being more clutch in this game because he was bad. I mean, that's the opposite of clutch, turning it over 3 times. But, like you said, he did put it away at the end. Real quick with that last drive, if anyone out there is choosing to pinpoint the penalty thrown on that 3rd down play at the end of the game, which put the game away, what are you doing? I mean, why, after everything we just talked about, the decision to kick the field goal, Aaron Rodgers not running it and instead throwing it into double coverage, all the previous missed opportunities off of Tampa Bay turnovers where you only came up with 6 points, after all of that, how can you point to that penalty that was thrown at the end of the game as, they're handing this game to Brady and the Bucs. It's rigged. I have no idea you must not have watched the entire game. There's no way you can come to that conclusion because, first of all, it was a penalty. Look, I talk about the refs a ton on this podcast, and when there's calls that go against the Ravens, I admit it. I'm a fan. I'm pissed off about it. And one of the things about refs that pisses me off the most is when they throw a flag really late. All right? And that's what happened here. They threw the flag late. It was so late. I mean, and if I was a fan of Green Bay, I would have been livid. But an hour later, 2 hours later, especially the next day, there's no way I would be talking about that penalty flag being thrown. It would not even be part of the conversation. It would be all about Rodgers, LaFleur. There's no way I would talk about the penalty because it was a hold. The replay showed us it was a hold. The ref should have thrown the flag sooner. I don't know. Do we have a camera on the ref? Was he struggling to get it out of his waistband? I don't know why it took him so long to throw the flag. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about botched calls in playoff games that we've seen in previous years, I don't know how you can be mad that the refs made a right call. So that's not even part of the conversation. Let's just get that right out of the way. I don't know if you had seen any of that. I saw some of it on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather take a situation where a ref, for whatever reason, throws a flag a couple of seconds late rather than something that happened in the, NFC Championship game a few years ago between the Rams and the Saints. But yeah, I mean, and I agree with you too. I mean, it wasn't all, Brady should not get all the credit there. I mean, he did cause 3 turnovers or, throw 3 turnovers into the game. And we also have to give credit, like you were saying, to the pass rush too of the Buccaneers, which, as we'll talk about in a minute, with the Chiefs losing their left tackle and Eric Fisher. I mean, that could certainly be a factor in the big game coming up in 2 weeks. But yeah, it's always a cop out. I mean, the Packers, all you need to say is that they scored 1 touchdown off of 3 turnovers total, and then had, two drives of doing nothing to cap it off. And then that entire just meltdown at the end there on the goal line. I mean, the difference to me was that the Buccaneers played to win, they coached to win, and the Packers played and coached not to lose. And that's why the Buccaneers won. And yes, like, do I have all the faith in the world in Tom Brady being able to hitting Scotty Miller on that 50-yard bomb, whatever it was? Do I have all the faith in the world that he can consistently push it down the field? No, he's 43. Of course, it's not going to be as perfect as he was eventually, 5 years ago even. But if I was LaFleur, there's no way I would feel comfortable. Like, all Tom Brady needs is 10 yards. Like, the moral of the story to me is there's no way I feel comfortable kicking a field goal and giving the ball back to that guy with just over 2 minutes left and thinking he can't get 10 yards, because I guarantee he can. I mean, he's better. The short plays where he's dissecting a defense, needs to get the ball out quickly, or they run the ball on a second and short, whatever. He's the master at that. So I just don't agree with that decision. And obviously now the story becomes the aftermath and Aaron Rodgers' comments after the game. And at the end of the day, like, I think he'll be back in Green Bay for at least one more season. But it would not shock me if he went to, somewhere in California or elsewhere to finish it off after next season.
Right. And then, we're talking about Brady just needing 10 yards at the end of the game. You go for it on 4th and 8, you don't get it. All right, that sucks. I mean, at least you tried. You tried to tie the game. You tried to put yourself in a position to win. You don't get it. It's a very real possibility, by the way, at 4th and 8. That's not a gimme by any means. All right, you're in the same situation. You're still down 1 score. And, you've got them backed up inside the 10. So if you do get a stop and they punt, you're going to start with much better field position. And with no timeouts left, because you're going to have to stop the clock, that field position is going to be huge. But you kick the field goal and then kick off to them. They start with, at the 25? You get the stop, they punt, you got to go even farther. So it does not make any sense no matter how you look at it. Last thing to talk about, Chiefs and the Bills. Then we'll wrap up. We'll save a Super Bowl preview for next week because we have this 2-week down period here. Bills, hey, they looked like they might be able to pull off the upset. I picked them to win this game. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl and represent the AFC. That was my pick weeks ago when the playoffs started. I liked them a lot. And they came out in this game, and there was a muffed punt by Hardman, and all of a sudden, Bills are up 9-0, and it's looking like, hey, they might be able to do this. And it was just all downhill from there. Chiefs routed off 21 unanswered points, never looked back. Any questions or concerns that we might have had about the Chiefs not putting away teams pretty much the entire second half of this regular season and flirting with disaster, as I put it when we talked about this, all of those concerns have been squashed. They came out, played against the second-best team in the AFC, no doubt. These were the 2 best teams in the AFC, and that's what I said in the preview, and I still stand by my pick of the Bills, is that, the Chiefs have failed to put away bad teams. The Chiefs, yes, Mahomes went down with an injury, but even when he was still in that game against the Browns, they were letting the Browns hang around, and they were flirting with disaster, as I put it. So you go up against a team like the Bills, who is the closest in terms of talent to you, there's no room for that mistake-riddled football that you've been playing. You have to be on your P's and Q's, and they were. And they were firing on all cylinders. They smashed the Bills, and now they will be heading to back-to-back Super Bowls. They played in 3 straight AFC Championship games. Safe to say they're the new Patriots in the AFC. New Brady and Belichick is now Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. You texted me during the game. You said something along the lines of you're not going to be happy about it, but we're rooting for Tom Brady. And I agree. I can't stand this Chiefs team. I cannot stand them. I don't like the way they walk. I don't like the way they talk. And I've been saying it for a while now. I don't think I've ever mentioned it on the podcast, but I'll do it now. I am waiting, so desperately waiting, for just the one time when they try one of those stupid trick plays and it backfires on them big time. I hope with the game on the line in the Super Bowl, they try one of those stupid underhand shuttle passes that they've been running all season, and a linebacker for the Bucs just camps on it, reads it the entire way, and blows up the receiver, maybe forces a fumble, forces a turnover. I'm so sick of them doing this stupid cute stuff and the media just fawning over them. Oh, they're geniuses, and Andy Reid's the best head coach of all time. He's a genius. Pat Mahomes can do no wrong.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this one. I mean, the game just said to me that the Chiefs are on a whole other level. I mean, I commend you for sticking to, for sticking to your original Super Bowl pick in the Bills. But this just, showed me that, the Chiefs, it's everybody else and the Chiefs in the NFL. And yeah, that's a great way to put it. They are the new Patriots. Despite it's either, like, I've noticed a lot of people, it's either you love the Chiefs or you hate the Chiefs. And it's either you want to root for, you're so against Tom Brady. You grew up watching Tom Brady play in, 18% of the Super Bowls in history, and you're just sick of seeing him and you want to see anybody else. Well, to those people, I would just suggest that you do some breathing exercises and take all of the hatred that you had for Belichick and the Patriots and Tom Brady and just let it go. Because here's the thing, the Ravens are going to have to deal with the Chiefs for the next 10 to 15 years. They're not going to have to deal with Tom Brady for another 2 years at least, if he's even still playing at that point. And the Ravens and the Buccaneers have no beef whatsoever. I don't understand the argument of rooting for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I just don't. The media sucks them off 24/7. They were also sucking off Josh Allen after the game, after he had the Bills scored a touchdown, great. But there were several plays out there that Josh Allen was holding onto the ball way too long, looked really unsure of himself, and just had bad plays. And I guarantee you, if Lamar Jackson had the same game, the media would not be kissing his butt like they're kissing Josh Allen's all week. But I'm not going to have that argument because the Ravens are, they were knocked out of the playoffs last week. The Chiefs fans have been in Ravens Twitter for a long time now. I am no longer on Twitter. I've heard that from other people that have been on social media that their fans are really cocky. And I don't really appreciate Mahomes' swagger all the time. I don't think he's this uber nice guy that everybody thinks he is. I think he's got a little bit of an arrogant side to him. So yeah, we're going to get more into the Super Bowl next week, of course, but the Chiefs are the new Patriots. I don't understand why some Ravens fans, not all of them, but some Ravens fans at this point are still, Tom Brady is their least favorite person ever.
So I think I texted this to you after you told me about never been more excited to root for Tom Brady, and I agree. There is something really endearing about Tom Brady at this point in his career. I mean, the jump from the AFC to the NFC, when he made that move, all the talk was, was it him or was it Belichick? And that was just such a stupid conversation to have. You will never know. And in reality, it's both of them together. It's the entire team. It's not one guy. It's not two guys. It's the entire team they had for years. So But I will say it speaks to Tom Brady's greatness to make the jump from the AFC to the NFC, get into the playoffs, take an entirely new team that in this offseason, by the way, we talk about this with rookies coming in to the NFL and the learning curve for them in a COVID-impacted offseason. How about Tom Brady, who, again, knows the game of football better than anyone, but he's joining an entirely new system, throwing to an entirely new cast of receivers. That is a testament to him and his greatness to be able to step in year one, take this team to the playoffs, get in as a wild card, the 5 seed, and then now take them to the Super Bowl and get past other all-time great quarterbacks in Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers on your way to the Super Bowl. That's greatness. 10 Super Bowls in this guy's career. There is no debate. He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah, like that's my whole point. Like, he's already won 6. What's another one? Like, what is another one? Like, why can't we just sit back and appreciate this for what it is? Because I highly doubt we're going to see another 43, 44-year-old quarterback trying to go for his 7th title. It's just, at some level, you just have to just give in and respect it and appreciate it for what it is.
Right, and yeah, you're witnessing history. You're witnessing something that will likely never happen again. And as a sports fan, I think you would just have to have some level of appreciation, like you said, for that. And just popped into mind when we're talking about 6 and 7, how cool would it be, or maybe not cool is the word, but how funny would it be if Tom Brady, if one person has more rings than the entire Steelers organization in their entire history? And that whole argument about 6 rings, hey, one man has more rings than your entire history of your franchise does. So I don't want to hear that 6 rings BS anymore. I'll leave it at that. But we'll see. It'll be a great game. We'll have plenty to say about it next week. And that'll do it for episode 138. Maybe the Ravens will have more news next week. If not, we can definitely get into the Lamar Jackson conversation about his prospective extension. Other free agents, will definitely be talking about them between now and the middle of March when free agency opens. A lot to talk about with them. Orioles news, I'm sure, will still be popping up. And, we're talking about the Super Bowl, all that. So thank you guys, as always, for listening. Spread the word. As always, tell your friends, family, coworkers, whoever. And we'll be here next week, episode 139. Talk to you then.